How's it going, Thieves fans? I want to bring a new style of video to you guys today. I figured with this past weekend being a pretty big weekend for 100 Thieves Esports, I thought now would be the perfect time to kind of talk about all three of the teams that played. We got to watch the Call of Duty team play. I was at the major, so we'll, get to break that down as well. But then the Marvel Rivals team played in a championship matchup, and then the Valorant team finally played once again after 2 months. So I want to break all those three things down for you guys today. I'm going to start off with the Valorant roster. I know that we don't really talk about much outside of the Call of Duty team on this channel very often, but I think this is something I wanted to try and see how it would go, because I know on Twitter I often post a lot about just everything 100 Thieves. So I'm trying to bring that into the YouTube channel as well. And I'm going to start off with the Valorant team purely because their match is probably the easiest thing to break down right now. We haven't seen them play for about 2 months, and don't get me started on the whole Valorant setup and how it all works out, because I could go on a rant forever about that. But of course, we started off this split, or this stage, however you want to call it, against Sentinels once again. And it seems like this is an inevitable thing for the Thieves. Every single time, they come back into their matches and they always have to play against Sentinels. I don't know what it is. It seems like we get the crazy luck of the draw. But I think everybody was kind of excited to have 100 Thieves Valorant back. I think when you don't get to watch a team for a really long time, it's really exciting to know that, hey, we get to watch these guys play again. Even if it doesn't turn out well, it's like, at least we get to watch. But with how this entire weekend went, which, as I said, we'll get into more of the other stuff later, but the Thieves Valorant team did not look as good as we would hope after having not seen them for, as I said, 2 months. The Thieves team came in and they did not look great on the first map that they played against Sentinels. And you could kind of just tell that the vibe was not really there this weekend, I felt like. And maybe that's just me being a little biased on the fact that I was at the Call of Duty event. I got to see a lot of the stuff that happened firsthand. And then I went and watched the Valorant match, and it didn't turn out great. So maybe that's just me being in my own head, but really, we would have loved to see more out of the Valorant team. They ended up losing their series 2-1. And the first map, I want to say they ended up winning 6 rounds, which is not great. Like, you want them to be a little more competitive. I think, like, even at that point, if we would have lost the first map and it would have been, say, like 13-10, I think that would have felt much better. But, losing 13-6, or I'm pretty sure that's what the scoreline was for that first map, it's just kind of a little underwhelming, I would say. Obviously, you got 3 games to play as long as you win your second one. And the Thieves actually did that. They came out really hot in the second map. They looked a lot more confident going into that one. And I think that was kind of like a little bit of a spark that it was like, okay, maybe the Thieves can close this one out. Maybe they just don't play well on that first map that they played. And so we went into the Haven map 2, and the Thieves looked great. We had a really hot opening start to the map, and the Thieves kind of just had the momentum to close out that map altogether. And then they went into their third and final map, and they just did not look the same. It was like they genuinely could not win a round. They ended up winning 1 round, losing 13-1 in the third map. And that's just not something you want to see. Like I said, we lost 13-6 roughly in the first map. Not ideal, but then to lose even worse in the third one is just kind of like, man, what happened? As I said, I could go on a rant about, kind of the whole Valorant thing here. The way I tend to look at it, because I don't want to give the team too much of a hard time. Like, they have it set up to where they're scrimming for 2 months, while we'll just say Sentinels, for example, here, since we just played them, while Sentinels is getting to play teams on the main stage. Like, they're getting to play in front of fans. They're getting a real competitive atmosphere, whereas the Thieves team is stuck at the compound playing pretty much online with no fans, no, like they're not in the same situation. And I mean, as a athlete, like a previous athlete, like practicing and playing in a game are two completely different things. And I think when you have a time frame of 2 months where all you're doing is practicing, and then you come in against people who have been actually playing games, like real games, it just makes it really hard to break that cycle, to come out of it, because it seems like every time the Thieves hop back in, they play against a team who's been playing for a while, they lose, then they don't play for a long time, like actual games, like I said, and then they come back in and they play somebody who has the entire time, and then it's back to that cycle again. And so I feel like the Thieves Valorant team is at a point where they are talented, they are a good team. Like we said, last year they won First Strike, and I know they don't or not First Strike, they won the stage 2, I believe it was. So they won an actual stage. Like they're good enough to win. Obviously they had Bang at that point, now we have Xander instead. But still, it's just kind of like, you know, how are we supposed to break out of this cycle when we don't actually get to play? We don't get to compete on the main stage. Just the format of the entire Valorant thing just seems really awkward to me. I think it kind of sets us up for failure in some regard. Not for that to sound like an excuse for the Thieves not playing up to their standard, but it definitely makes it a lot harder, I feel like. And I'm sure like the players probably won't admit that, because again, I think it comes off as like an excuse, but I mean, it's just the truth. I feel like, you know, like I said, being a athlete myself, like playing in practices were not the same as playing in games. The more I played in games, the more confident I was to be able to go out and be better the next time we played another game. Whereas I could be great in practice, but if I'm not playing a game, I go into a game, I might be a little more nervous. I might have more of the jitters because I'm not used to it. And obviously, that's me talking from like a high school sports experience, whereas these guys are playing at the professional level. They're the best of the best. So I'm sure there's definitely a little bit of a disconnect there, but I think the premise is still the same. Like you can't replicate a game scenario, and it's so different. And I think that needs to be reworked. I think that needs to be changed. But I do think the Thieves have the potential to still be a really good team. I've seen people calling for players to be dropped or players to be released, and I don't necessarily think that's the move right now. Obviously, I'm not as deep into the Valorant scene as I am Call of Duty, so that's why maybe I might not talk about it as much on this channel. But from what we've seen from this team, I mean, they are talented. Like there's no doubt about that. They all have their moments where everything just kind of like clicks and everything looks really good, but for some reason right now they weren't there yet. And like I said, part of that could be due to the fact that they've been only really practicing and not actually competing on a real stage. So like I said, Thieves ended up losing that one 2-1. It was really unfortunate. You know, with so many matches all being held on the same day too. For the Thieves, I think that made it really tough for a lot of Thieves fans. But that brings us into I'm going to say the Call of Duty. We can talk about the Call of Duty. I know it's going to be the longest segment here, but you'll see why we talk about rivals at the very end. The Call of Duty team, we just did not look like ourselves 2 of the 4 days that we were there. Just straight up. I mean, the very first day we took on Boston Breach, and we were in winners bracket. This, to me, should have been a cut and dry, at worst 3-1 for the Thieves to move on in the winners bracket. And for some reason, the Thieves just came out so lackluster. They ended up losing it 3-1 to Boston. And that's just not something you expect to see from this team. I mean, we had such a good stage 2 where we went undefeated. We only lost 2 maps the entire stage. We won the minor tournament, and then we come on to LAN and we lose to Boston 3-1. Like, it was just so confusing, man. Like, I don't know. I don't know what happened there. I can't really like explain it. It just seemed like the team wasn't playing very well together. and it really sucked to see being there. I've only been to 2 other events before, and the most recent one I was at Champs in Modern Warfare 2, and the Thieves got double first rounded at that event. So that was really disappointing to see that. And then come to this tournament, kind of hoping, hey, this team looks insane right now. This is our tournament to win. And then they come out in their first series and they lose 3-1 to Boston. It just, I know that the team was probably really upset, and that's the thing I always have to remind myself. But it definitely felt like a shot to the gut. It was like, man, I was really hoping to see these guys make a good run. And to be honest, after that loss, they did start to make a run. They dropped down into losers bracket. And so that meant on Friday, they faced off against the Heretics in their first series of the day. And they struggled, I would say, in the first 2 maps, or they struggled a little bit early. And then they were able to kind of find their rhythm a little bit. It wasn't the most pretty win that we've seen from this Thieves team. They did still end up winning 3-1. But when we saw the way they played against the Heretics on LAN at the last tournament, they definitely looked a lot more comfortable. This go around, they had some more struggles. And like I said, to start off the series, I was kind of sitting there getting a little anxious, like, hey, are we really about to get double first rounded at another event that I'm at? Like, if so, this is not good, man. But the Thieves ended up closing it out. Like I said, they won that one 3-1. And I think after that, they started to get their confidence back a little bit, because later that day, they played the last match going up against the Royal Ravens. And once again, they just looked on top of the world against the Ravens. I mean, in some regard, I kind of feel bad for Carolina. Like, these guys have gone up against the Thieves multiple times, and every single time the Thieves just smoke them. I don't know what it is. So far throughout, I believe it's the 3 hard points that the Thieves have played against the Ravens still would not have scored enough points to win a hard point map. They still have not scored 250 seconds in 3 hard point maps against the Thieves. That's insane. Like, that's a wild thing to think. But it was nice to see the Thieves come out really hot on that Friday night against the Ravens, because at that point it was like, okay, we're starting to find our groove again. We're starting to get back into the swing of things, and we're heating up at the right time. You want to heat up towards the end of the tournament, because that's when you need it the most. And especially with us being in losers bracket so early and trying to make a run, it kind of became like, okay, we're heating up. Now we go into the Saturday and Sunday trying to see what can we do. What can we do from here? We started off really slow, but we're picking it up, and that's all that matters. And going into the Saturday, the Thieves only had 1 match they played. Last match of the day, once again. It was last match of the day. No, it wasn't. It was. Wait, I'm looking at the thing here, and it looks very upside down. Okay, yeah, it was last match of the day. Sorry, I was reading the thing different. But yeah, the Thieves were last match of the day. They played against Cloud9 New York. And honestly, I was a little nervous, because Cloud9 was looking really good before that. They had a little bit of a tougher matchup earlier in the day going up against FaZe, where they actually competed pretty well against them. They ended up losing it 3-1, but a lot of the maps were really close. So I was a little nervous going into that one, because we saw, like we said, the Thieves did not look great to start off the tournament. And yes, they looked really good against Carolina, but it was like, what are we going to get from the Thieves today? What are we going to see? And luckily, we got to see the same Thieves that came out against the Ravens. Thieves ended up winning this one 3-0 pretty handedly once again. And so, again, the momentum felt like, man, this is really our time, man. Like, we are looking good. We're starting to figure it out right when we need to. And with the Thieves winning that one, we didn't have to play again until Sunday. So we were guaranteed a Sunday spot. And, going from Thursday morning, you end up dropping into losers bracket, to making it to Sunday. That's kind of a big deal at that point. And I know like with the Thieves being as talented as they are, I think a lot of people will say that this was definitely an underwhelming major for them, which I would agree. But you got to say top 4 is good. Like it really is. And I know we didn't play the best. I know the Thieves did not look as good as they did in the stage 1 major tournament. But to me, top 4 is still solid. If you're able to get to that point, because obviously there were other teams that the Thieves faced off against that you could argue maybe deserved a higher spot, and they weren't able to get it. I mean, Boston ended up getting knocked out of the tournament earlier than the Thieves did, and Boston was the one who put the Thieves in losers bracket. So, the Thieves kind of started to find their momentum. They did struggle on Sunday though. I don't know what it was. We faced off against Toronto Ultra, and once again, the Thieves kind of went back to how they looked on Thursday. Ultra, don't get me wrong, I don't mean to take any credit away from them. Ultra was looking really good this weekend, like really good. But they should not have lost 3-0 to Ultra. The Thieves should not have lost 3-0 to Ultra, just straight up. Joe Deceives had an insane series. Shout out to him. Dude's a beast. Obviously, with him being on the Thieves last season, I'm very, very happy for him. It definitely sucked that he was the one to knock us out of the tournament. But I just think the Thieves came out so flat on the Sunday, and it was really disappointing, especially on the Sunday. Like Thursday, you have time to make it up, right? Sunday, you're in losers bracket. This is your time to make that push, like we said, and they get swept 3-0. And they just didn't look good the entire time, really. They probably should have won the S&D. They had more than enough opportunities to win their S&D, and they just weren't able to close it out. Joe Deceives, again, made some crazy plays, and things just didn't go our way this weekend, so we ended up bowing out top 4. And I saw some people calling for like Envoy's head, and that's just wild to me. I don't know how you think Envoy should be a guy to get rid of at this point. He was literally our best player at stage 1. If he had a rough major 2, like, so what? He played well. The entire team struggled this event. I mean, even Hydra, I think at one point had like a 0.8 or something like that. Not something you expect to have from a player of that caliber. So it was definitely a disappointing end to the weekend. FaZe ended up going on and winning the tournament. They faced off against the Surge in the Grand Finals and won it 4-0. If I'm being honest, I left the venue early. I genuinely did not want to see FaZe win another tournament. I do kind of blame myself a little bit, though. I did see Draws in one of the hotel lobbies, and I gave him a fist bump, and I said, good luck today. And then next thing you know, they end up winning. So I don't know. I don't know if I gave him too much good luck. I gave him too much of the good luck energy. But in all seriousness, I mean, FaZe look undeniable right now. They just look really, really good. And Vancouver looked pretty solid against them. But it just seems like, to me, honestly, the only team that kind of stands a chance at beating FaZe right now would probably be the Thieves when they're playing at their best. I'm not going to say the way they look this tournament, because the way they look this tournament, they wouldn't have stood a chance against FaZe at all. They probably would have gotten smoked in the Grand Finals if they came out how they did on Sunday, as well as how they did on Thursday. So I'm not going to sit here and say that the Thieves, if the Thieves just got bad matchups or whatever. No, they did not look great. But I think if the Thieves is firing on all cylinders, it does seem like they're the only team that can really like compete with FaZe. I think the next closest team is probably the Surge, and I think they kind of just ran out of gas a little bit towards the end of the tournament. But yeah, like I said, that put us out top 4. I did get to meet the Thieves team, which was really cool. I actually got a couple cards signed. I got a 99 overall scrap card. Got the kid to sign that one. Super dope. Scrap is a great guy. I can't lie. I no, I've heard like a lot of people say that he's a really great guy, but even just meeting him in person, I got to meet him the day the Thieves lost on Thursday. And despite everybody kind of being upset that, that the loss happened, he still seemed like in pretty good spirits and was kind of chatting with everybody. So shout out to Scrap. He's a dope dude. I got my Envoy card signed, the Huntsman one. This one's numbered. I don't know if you can see it on the bottom there. I got that one. It's going to be a little harder to see on this one. It is a Hydra card. Um, he did sign it in black. Oh, it does show up pretty well here. And then I got the LAT Envoy card signed, which I was very happy about. Obviously, with him being on the Thieves, it was nice to have that as well. But yeah, outside of that, we move on to the Marvel Rivals team, which the Marvel Rivals team, I mean, these guys are different, man. There's no better way to put it. These guys are insane on the toy. Like, they are so good at this game. And I genuinely don't think they've lost yet from what I've seen and what I've watched. The Marvel Rivals team is just, they're a different beast, man. And on Sunday, while we were at the COD tournament, they were taking on FlyQuest in the grand finals of the Marvel Rivals Invitational. And this was, I want to say, an $100,000 tournament. I could be wrong, but I thought there was a prize pool, and I thought that's what I saw. Again, I'm not as tapped into some of the other esports as much as I am the Call of Duty one, so I do apologize. But they went up against FlyQuest, and I was very glad I was able to watch that, because that definitely kind of lightened the mood up a little bit after having the Thieves struggle on Sunday and then having the Valorant team struggle against Sentinels. Going into the Rivals match, it was like, all right, here we go. This is the win that we need on the weekend. And they started off, they won their first map, I want to say, and then they ended up losing after that, which we haven't seen the Thieves lose a lot of maps when it comes to their matches. And when they lost that first map, it was like, whoa, okay, like, that's not good. Series is tied 1-1 now. We haven't seen this very often. And then they go on, they win the next one. It's like, okay, they're back. They look really good again. And then they go into the next map after that, and they lose that one. And it's like, whoa, what the heck is going on here? Like, we're losing maps. Like, the team is so good that it's like the second they lose a map, you're kind of like, uh-oh, what's happening? But then they iced up in the map 3. They ended up, I believe they played, probably it's like their worst map statistically that they played, and they like looked great on it. So maybe they were putting in a lot of work on that map to kind of bounce back. And again, I apologize, I don't know much of the names. I'm not as in tune to Marvel Rivals as some of the other esports yet, but they looked really, really good in that third map. And then they go on to the map 4, and they end up winning that one pretty handedly. Or not map 4, it was, at that point, it would have been map 6. They looked really good in the map 6. They ended up closing it out 4-2, and that made them the MRI champions. And it was super, super cool, like I said, to watch them get a win when we had such a rough day for all the other Thieves teams who played earlier. So it was a little bit of a bounce back at that point. We had at least one of the teams win, because I mean, man, it would have sucked to have all 3 teams lose all on the same day. It would not have been ideal. But the Thieves Rivals team was able to close it out. That Terra, that guy's a freaking beast, dude. Delana, he's a beast. TTK had a couple Magneto dunks. I mean, there was just some crazy stuff going on in that series, and just super, super cool to have a new like franchise or a new team that we get to watch now. I mean, I love getting to watch 100 Thieves Esports, and with us losing our first 2 matches of the day, I had tweeted out, for the first 2 teams, they lost their matches. I tweeted out that there's kind of like a yin and yang with esports, that it's like, you have the one side of things where it's like you get to watch a single organization play in multiple games, possibly all in one day, like we did on Sunday. But then you also have the possibility of watching all of your teams lose on the same day because of that. So it's like there's a little bit of a balance. You could win all of them in one day, or you could lose all of them in one day. And, depending on what happens, it's going to make you feel completely different. But it's great to see multiple rosters that, us Thieves fans get to root for. And, I was happy to at least get one win on the weekend, and especially it being a championship win because, obviously I would have been happy if the Valorant team won as well, but the Valorant match was just kind of like a stage match. It really wasn't like this big deal of a match, I feel like, in the grand scheme of things. Whereas like for the Call of Duty team, they were in the middle of a tournament and they were trying to make a run to get to the grand finals and possibly win a championship. And then the Rivals team was already in the grand finals and was looking to win a championship. So those two like teams, the Call of Duty team and the Rivals team, both kind of were the ones that I wanted to do the best because of the weight of the matches that they were playing. And like I said, when the Call of Duty team kind of underperformed, that one really hurt. And then obviously the Valorant team, you don't get to watch them for a while. They lose right after that. That really hurts. Kind of just needed that little bit of a pick me up from the Rivals team. So shout out to them for locking in and closing that one out. It might have been a little closer than what we were anticipating, but I mean, a win is a win, man. And they looked really good on the maps that they won. I mean, even the maps they lost, they still looked really good. Just my guess is it's getting to the point now where, because they're looked at as like the best team in NA, that all these rosters now are like trying to say, what the hell can we do to beat this Thieves team? Like they're targeting the Thieves roster because these guys are they're gross. I mean, like I said, Terra is insane. That guy pulls out the Wolverine, and every time he gets a kill with his ult, like happens every single time. Then you get like Delana, who is insane on Hella. I don't know if he plays Bucky every now and then, or if that's only Terra. And then, you got TTK on the Magneto most of the time. You got Vinny on the Groot. They say he's the best Groot in NA. And then Harvey, insane with the heals. He's healing up everybody. And then I think it's SJP is his name. He's another healer. The Thieves posted a little funny meme about him, him being Rocket Raccoon and stuff. So, I mean, this team is, like I said, it's really exciting to watch, and it's really cool to dive into a new esport, something that, I haven't really done in a while. Probably the last time that happened was when Valorant, kind of became an esport. So it's really cool to have that experience once again. And, if you guys aren't watching the Rivals team, if you're Thieves fans, even if you're not Thieves fans, I strongly suggest, if you're interested in Marvel Rivals at all, to go and watch when these Thieves guys play, because, I mean, their teamwork is just insane. They're on a whole nother level, it seems like. I think everybody is kind of looking at them as the best team in North America. So, if you want to jump on the bandwagon, I think all of us Thieves fans, all the people at 100 Thieves, I don't think they would be upset with that. And I strongly suggest taking a look at that. But yeah, I mean, really outside of that, there's not too much else to talk about. We have a little bit of a break when it comes to the Call of Duty side of things. So we got some downtime there. Gonna probably try and work on some other videos to release. If this is something you guys enjoyed, though, getting to kind of just chat about all of the things 100 Thieves, I am definitely interested in doing more of this. Like I said, I watch as much of 100 Thieves stuff as I can when it comes to the esports side of things. And then obviously I'm big on the apparel as well. So like if you guys even want updates on apparel and things like that, honestly, just let me know, because I'm trying to think of more content things outside of just the Call of Duty realm. Obviously with me being Thieves Talk, I want to talk about everything 100 Thieves. So figured, like I said, now is the perfect time to branch out and do that with how this past weekend was. So, if you guys enjoyed this video, honestly, please hit that like and subscribe button. Like I said before, it lets me know that you guys really enjoy what it is that I do when you do that. So it helps me out a ton. It lets me know what to work on and, what to continue to do. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for today's video. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.